Had a student ask a question about held to maturity and investments as we look at them. So we're going to do a little thing here on debt investments. And a debt investment, typically when we talk about that, that's basically meaning that a company is issuing bonds, which we consider a type of loan. So this is debt. An equity investment might be a stock or ownership in the company. So basically what this says is ABC Company buys $1.1 million of XYZ Company bonds at face value on January 2nd, 2018. The XYZ bonds pay interest at the annual rate of 3% on June 30th and December 31st and mature on December 31st, 2037. ABC intends to hold the investment until maturity. We need to journalize any required 2018 entries for the bond investment. We need to know how much cash interest ABC will receive each year and how much interest revenue will ABC report during 2018 on this specific investment. So, in this case, this is it tells us right here, we're going to hold this until maturity. So basically, we know this is a held to maturity investment, and the fact that it's a bond tells us that it's a debt investment. So they bought this on January 2nd, so we'll have on January 2nd, we're going to debit our held to maturities debt investment and debt investment, and we bought these at face value, and the face value is 1.1 million. So we'll debit our held to maturity debt investment for 1.1 million, and since we paid for them, bought them, we have to credit cash. So 1.1 million to cash. Now, the next thing we have to think of is these bonds pay interest at the annual rate of 3% on June 30th and December 31st. So we're going to receive interest on June 30th. And the amount of interest that we will receive, well, this pays semi-annually. Actually, let's change this. So we have semi-annual interest, which means 2 times per year. So if our APR, or annual percentage rate, is 3%, that means effectively what we'll have is each interest period we will receive 1.5% interest of the face value of the bond. So if we look at that and we say, okay, the bonds, 1,100,000. Well, if we multiply that times 1.5%, then that's $16,500. So that's the interest that we'll be receiving each period. So on 6/30, what we'll receive, of course, if we're receiving interest here, we'll get cash for the $16,500 that we calculated here. And this is interest revenue for $16,500. All right. Now, the other entry we have is we're getting another payment on December 31st. So we're going to scroll up here a little bit. And on 12/31, again, we'll receive cash in the amount of $16,500 and interest revenue, again, in the amount of $16,500. So that's number one. Here's number one. Number two says, how much cash interest will ABC receive each year? Well, if we want to calculate that, the two ways we can do it, 1,100,000 multiplied by 0.03, which is the decimal equivalent of 3%, gives us 16,500. Or we could say 1,100,000 multiplied by the interest per period, and since it's semi-annual and twice a year, let's erase that. That should be 33,000. Mental math is not with me today. At 1.5% would be at 16,500, and if we're doing that twice per year, we're getting 33,000. So in either case, whether we're multiplying by 3% or whether we're multiplying by 1.5% and then taking that at 2 times a year, we still come out with 33,000. So that is how much cash interest we will receive from this bond each year. Now they're asking how much interest revenue will ABC report during 2018 on this bond investment. Well, for number 3, they're going to report $33,000, and that's interest revenue. So, with a held to maturity investment, a couple of things we need to think of with a held to maturity. Number one, we're not intending to sell it. It's not available to sell. It's we're going to hold it until it matures. Typically, we see these in debt investments because these are what we think of as bonds. Um, we have to account for the interest, and as a side note here, remember when we're calculating interest, it's equal to principal times rate times time. And remember, our principal is usually our face value. Our rate is typically our APR divided by compounding periods per year. And then time is always based off of 1 year. So where we're doing it semi-annual, and we'll scroll down here and add a little bit more to this. When we're talking about time, annually would be 1 time a year. Semi-annual would be twice per year. Of course, we could do quarterly, which would be 4 times per year. Monthly would be 12. And these are the typical frames. We could also have weekly. We don't really see that often, but we could have weekly, which would be 52. We can have daily, which would be 360. And we'll put a little asterisk here because 360 is what we consider what they call banker's interest. But we could also have 365, which is exact. So our time frame is going to depend, and remember always when we're doing time frames in regards to our interest equation here, when it comes to time, remember always use a fraction, never use a decimal. If we're doing this for 7 months, 7 months, we would have a time frame of 7 over 12. If we're doing this for 45 days, well, it depends on whether it's exact or bankers. Usually we're going to assume, for our intents and purposes in accounting, it's exact. So we'd have 45 over 365 for time. If we're doing, say, 3 years, then it'd be 3 over 1 or 3. If we do semi-annual, then really we're looking at, it's twice per year, so 1/2. Quarterly, we'd have 1 over 4 or 3 over 12. This could also be 6 over 12. So remember, when we talk about time, it's relative to what we're looking at. Time is all, interest rates are always expressed in an annual or yearly format, but we do have to break down our time frames based on compounding periods per year. So I hope this helps with debt investments and also some calculations on interest. If there are any questions, my students know how to get a hold of me. Other than that, everyone have a good day.